Hello and welcome. My name is Clint Barnett. I am the newly elected president of Chi Sigma Iota's Alpha Epsilon chapter here at the University of Akron. Uh, this video is sponsored through CSI through our series, Get to Know Your Faculty. This series came from, in fall 22, we ran a survey of the counseling students, and they thought it would be very beneficial to receive, a video of who the faculty is and getting to know them and everything. So that is why we're here. I'm accompanied by Dr. Marisa Cargill, current professor here in the School of Counseling. I'm actually a student in her class right now. I'm in Counseling 651, Techniques in Counseling, and she's currently my professor. And she's also a former president of Chi Sigma Iota's Alpha Epsilon chapter. So if you'd like to introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, I'm Dr. Marisa Cargill. I have been teaching at the University of Akron since I was in my doc program here, and my first class was fall of 2016. For those of you who might know Professor Chase, he was one of my first students. So he's also here, so in that section of techniques. So it's kind of full circle stuff, but I have been at the University of Akron for my master's and my doc program. So I finished my master's in 2014, went straight into the counselor ed doctoral program, and I never left. So, but I have taken on different roles as I'm here, and I'm excited to be here and talk to you all and you.
Yeah, awesome. It's lovely to have you here.
Thanks.
We're all very excited. So to start, tell me a little bit about your education, your work in the field, and how your professional identity has developed over the course.
Sure. So I touched on my master's and my doc program being here. I actually am one of the people who stayed at Akron for everything, which we can have a whole debate about. But I did undergrad several years before I came back for my master's in mass media and sociology with a minor in psych. I was one of those undecided majors who just kept changing and then keeping, and so I ended up with a double major and a minor. And that actually has influenced some of the stuff that I've been really interested in studying as a counselor and counselor educator. So it did help shape some of what I do. But my experience in counseling, initially I was drawn to the field to help people who are going through medical conditions and deal with the mental health sides of that, just from my own personal and familial experiences. And so that initially was my why, but as I was exposed to other areas through this program, I decided maybe that wasn't exactly where I wanted to be, even though I think that's very important, let's be clear. I realized pretty early on and in my practicum experience that addictions were prevalent whether or not we wanted to work with them. And I was very naive, I think, to think that was not true. I'm like, oh, I just want to deal with mental health. People who are anxious and depressed and what have you. I don't want to deal with addictions. That's not really realistic because there's a lot of co-occurring stuff, and I go through the chicken or egg discussion. But I realized that in my practicum experience, and that led me to working in an IOP community setting for my internship. And so I got even more exposure to that and just other community mental health at that location. And so I had really positive learning experiences. And then as part of the doc program, we stay in community mental health, serving here at the Clinic for Individual and Family Counseling with some of maybe the more complicated cases that come to the clinic. At that time, they were elevated to the doc students. I know that's not the case anymore because the doc students no longer exist in this program, but that is a lot of the experience I had up until in the doc program I started working at a community college in their counseling center. And so as I was willing to try on something else for size, I found places that I'm like, this is a great fit. I knew I already liked teaching, but working with college student population has been really rewarding too. And so I spend a lot of time in my current role now, wearing a career counseling hat quite a bit. Sometimes our setting traditionally doesn't like run groups, but we have some courses that sort of serve like group counseling with themes and topics. And so there's some of that happening, and then also personal crisis, because that happens to students as well as the non-student population.
Right.
So
Definitely.
serve a lot of students in the Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio at Tri-C, and a wide gamut of things happen in the counseling center there, so it's never boring.
Right.
But because we wear career hats and things like that too, it also is nice that I don't get burnt out with maybe some of that as well. So it's been really an exciting thing. I've been at Tri-C since then, so it's been about 7.5, almost 8 years that I started working there. So that's kind of where I've been ever since, and also teach here. So I've been doing that for quite some time, as I previously mentioned, and serve in some capacities in the Ohio Counseling Association. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
In my world. I don't know if I missed any part of that question, but hopefully I can give you a really thorough answer.
I think you gave a great answer. So moving on from there, going back into Chi Sigma Iota, obviously you're a former president.
Correct.
So could you expand or talk a little bit more about what your experience has been like being a part of that organization or our organization?
Yeah, so it was really rewarding because I was able to meet past, students of our program, and connect with people in order to help bring them in to support CSI. And so it was something that helped me, I think, learn more about what I wanted to do in some of my leadership capacities and what's comfortable, what's not comfortable, professional boundary setting, which I'm looking at everyone in the room right now, that he's not the only one. But that sometimes it's important to have these professional leadership experiences, but also recognize, okay, this is a lot, and maybe I have to focus my energy in other places. And so it was important to work with other people and recognize there are people that ask for help. When you have an organization that you don't have to shoulder the burden alone, so that was really helpful. And again, at the time, I was a doc student, so I know that our chapter has shifted a little bit with the elimination of that program, and I was really called to try and make sure that the master students were coming into the program. We started an ambassador program during that time. Also, how I was connected to Professor Chase, because he was set up as he was my mentee. It was a mentorship program, and he asked for a mentor, and here I was. So we actually met maybe a semester before he was my student, and it was really nice because we were helping shepherd people into the profession and get comfortable without it feeling too intimidating. So I started in CSI's social chair, then doing this ambassador where we got master students to be part of it, because we knew that we wanted more master student involvement, and it wasn't just a doc student clique,
Right.
And so that was really important to me in serving, but it learned that other people are interested, and sometimes it just is a matter of asking for that help. Hey, do you think you'd be into that? And sometimes people are yeah, I never even knew that was an option for me. So shepherding is probably a really good word to use, that it's just no one's forced, but we know that we needed the support, and other students felt like they were getting something out of it too.
That's awesome. That's great.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. So
Yeah.
moving on now, let's talk about a theoretical orientation. So what theoretical foundation resonates with you the most, and how's it guided you in your work?
I saw this question ahead of time, and I was gosh, tough. So as counselors, because we're holistic, I do think we have to take into account biopsychosocial, spiritual factors and elements, and so I was students in my career class, but I feel like I say it in a lot of things. We can't cookie cutter people away from things. So I really am trying to focus on like the unique individual I'm serving and what might support them best. I think how I contextualize people in terms of treatment though, like in ascribing that to theory, would be some type of behavioral, because I do think of like people's readiness for change. So I always lean to like we're creatures of habit, and that those habits and patterns sometimes serve us really well. And a lot of times our clients come to us when those habits and patterns have stopped serving them well, and that they need to learn new habits and patterns. And so that can really align with CBT a lot, but it's not always just CBT. And so I think looking at stages of change and trans-theoretical model, if you want to get really into the weeds there, helps me understand like where I can help. If someone's not really ready to change, can we look at psychoeducation and trying to help them learn more about maybe why their family wanted them to come to counseling, or why they were court-ordered for counseling, or something like that. And so you would say like behavioral, but person-centered with an umbrella over that, because we have to look at the unique individual and what their needs are in order to like approach the situation. Yeah, and maybe feminist theory, like just because it's important for us to understand the implications of culture and power.
Definitely.
And how that's shaped someone's experience as well. And I feel like I see that a lot in my current role at the community college of some of our students really need wraparound support, and that's not by just their fault. It's a system that maybe hasn't supported them.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah.
So now we'll move into some classroom instruction.
Yes.
So, what classes have you taught here? At the School of Counseling here at the University of Akron, and why do you think these courses are important to the curriculum?
Get my CV out here, right? So, in the past, I have taught pre-prac once. So not like super well versed, but obviously that class is very important because it's really getting your feet wet and prepared before you enter probably one of the more anxiety-provoking parts of the program. So it's really like an orientation almost in like a more, I would say, like robust way, not just like a one-day situation. We've taught group counseling multiple times, and I love that because it is, as much as we use some of the techniques that you might learn in other courses, like techniques, which I'll get to, there's something different about the way groups operate and how we as counselors intervene and support those processes. So I really like that. Probably one of the more fun classes, but I think that about group and techniques because in terms of like the coursework, they're the ones that are not completely didactic, where it's just a teacher lecturing, that we get to put you in the hot seat of practicing and maybe making students a little uncomfortable, but with the safety and support of their instructors and their classmates and trying things out before you're with a real client. And so group has been really fun to see like some of those processes play out and people be like, oh wow, I didn't even realize it until I was reflecting back on it after today's lab. And so that one has been really fun, and for the same reasons I feel like techniques, and that's the one I feel like I've taught the most in this program. I haven't been teaching it since fall 2016, so to be clear, there's been a few semesters here and there that are off, but pretty consistently for the last few years. And again, it's just cool. That's the first class where people have to get out of their comfort zone, I think, a bit more than your traditional lecture style courses. So
yeah, I can say just being in the course this past semester, going into it, I was obviously very, like you said, it's a lot of anxiety provoking stuff when you're looking in front of someone and you're actually doing it for the first time. But after the mock interview was finished, that was a 40-minute interview, I realized that this is something that, I can actually do this,
Yes.
and it really is a great icebreaker into, what you practice daily once you become licensed. So, yeah, and I feel like you have been a great help in that process as a professor for this semester.
I get really excited about that. And what I think, like to Clint's point, it's so cool to see all my students at the end of the semester like hit their 40 minutes and be like, I can't believe I did that. And I'm like, on day one, y'all were terrified and thought, absolutely not, this isn't possible. And that like within a matter of weeks, because it's not even the 16 weeks yet, like you've done it, you've like processed it and realized, hey, here's what I might need to work on, but here's like where I'm doing pretty well. Like these are some skills that I've like really picked up, and so it's cool to see that evolution over such a short amount of time. And I think it does happen, a lot in techniques because it's the first one, but it happens in group too. So those two have been like really fan favorites for me. And then I also have been teaching career quite a bit over the past few years. It's a mouthful. It's career counseling and development across the lifespan, or development and counseling across the lifespan, one or the other. It's a mouthful. So most people just call it career. And 653, if I think that's right, or is that group? I'm so bad. If I misspoke, I apologize. And that's mostly because I wear that hat a lot at Tracy. So that's been really helpful, and I know a lot of students will take that class, and I always start out with, do you think you need this class? Are you like wondering why you have to take this class? And people will willingly say, yeah, I'm not sure why I'm here, like why do we need this? And so my goal is just to help people understand how relevant career is, because it impacts every area of life really. And so to the point earlier of not being able to cookie cutter, I say it a lot in that class, because when someone is doing something for 40 hours a week, or use that as part of their identity, if they lose that, that's huge, and that doesn't just impact a job, that impacts your mental health, that might impact your relationships. And so understanding that and learning the theories and the things that go along with it, some of the interventions that we can use to support people who might be struggling with career issues, is meaningful. And especially I think as a result of the pandemic, and things that have happened in the world of work as a result, more remote work. A lot of moms left the workforce initially, and so some entry back into the workforce, navigation, things like that. There's a lot of stuff that I think we'll continue seeing, and it again is interwoven with how am I feeling about that? How are my relationships, because I'm not making as much money and bringing that home to my family, and so are we strained, or do I need extra support with childcare because I have to do this? So there's a lot of things that come up, I think, as a result of career. And then the only one I think I haven't mentioned is personality not normal, but it's not a class anymore. So I think they shifted to the advanced DSM, but that course was more about the personality disorder section of the DSM, and so that was really fun. You might not think that happens to be something I deal with in community college, and you would be wrong. So again, it's just a sector of the community, so we see some of that in that setting as well. So it was a fun class. Sorry I won't be able to teach you that one, but yeah, I think that I might have to double check my CV, but I think those are the only ones I've taught here so far.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
It's a pretty big list.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was all the questions we had for you. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having
Really
me.
appreciate it. Yeah, of course.